So everybody, thank you so much for joining us, our students at Rio Hondo and our guests from around the county, and of course our amazing guest. It's so wonderful to have you today. I'm just so excited to introduce Maestro Grant Gershon. He's been the artistic director for the Los Angeles Master Chorale since 2001. And I talk about this group all the time in my music appreciation class and other history classes and musicianship class. I mean, it's not normal to have this kind of group in our driving distance where we can go and watch. This is like the group. And they were actually, they are considered the most prestigious and exciting chorus in the country. So Maestro has also been serving as the resident conductor of the Los Angeles Opera. He's also the member of the Board of Counselors for the USC Thornton School of Music and a member of the Chorus America Board of Directors. So without further ado, Maestro, would you like to start? Oh, okay, I'll try to call you Grant, but would you like to start with a few words maybe, and we have some questions for you?
Yeah, that's great. Sure, yeah, because I'm really eager to have this be a dialogue and to see what's on everybody's minds. First off, thanks everybody for being here with me today. Yeah, I mean, Joanne and I were just talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, and I have to share that last night, for the first time, pretty much since all of this started, I was conducting an orchestra live, which was just amazing. That LA Chamber Orchestra is doing some filming and recording this week live over at Fox Studio in Century City. And I mean, it was just amazing. And all the players as well, most of them were playing for the first time together, and so we were weeping and it was like messy and ridiculous, but it is, we are feeling like we're like live music is going to be coming back pretty soon now. And at the organizations I'm involved with at the LA Master Chorale and the LA Opera, we're planning out the summer and the fall, and again, just looking forward to being back in person. How many of you guys are singers here? Is that pretty much like most everybody? Or okay, because as singers, we are like exhibit A in the minds of the public for super spreaders, right? And so it's just, I feel like as singers, and especially as choral singers, it's been such a trial and a journey, and for all of us, not only just everything that we're going through personally, but also just to feel safe with each other, singing again together. And so again, finally to have that kind of be on the horizon is really, really beautiful. So I thought maybe, what I'd love to do is maybe share a little bit of music and performances from my computer that can maybe spark some conversation as well. So the first thing that I wanted to share, and I'll just go ahead and start that up, share screen, and optimize, all that good stuff. So this is just kind of by way of introduction. This is a little bit of a recording that my wife Alyssa Johnston and I made kind of early on in the pandemic, and this is just I wanted to share it first off because it's a super beautiful song. I also love hearing Alyssa sing, and this was to me kind of a classic example of how we were all making music and sharing music from our houses and our living rooms and our acoustic bathrooms or whatever. So I'll just play about a minute of this song. It's called Sure on This Shiny Night by Morton Lauritsen, who's a composer that was based in LA for a number of years. So here it goes.
Shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness must watch for me, they sigh.
and it just goes on from there. So let me get out of the share and see you guys again. Yeah, anyway, so as I say, like we were all kind of doing like whatever we could do. And I was in this fortunate situation where my wife is a singer. And so we found ourselves like entertaining our dogs a lot. In fact, you might hear one of our dogs is snoring under the piano right now. Probably will for this whole thing. So so that's kind of like that is like the COVID accompaniment to all of our music making these days. So with the LA Master Chorale, when all of this started back a year ago in March, on March 13th was the last performance that we were able to give before the shutdown, and we were in New Zealand. Actually, we were at the Auckland Festival, and one of the things that we've realized since then is we should have stayed in New Zealand. New Zealand is, not only is it beautiful, but like they really like had the COVID situation under control and amazing leadership and the whole bit. But anyways, what was interesting about this was the morning of that final performance on March 13th. As you know, at that point, if you put yourself back, right, the whole world was shutting down and the NBA had canceled the season and everything was like crazy. And we felt like we were in this oasis on the other side of the world. And the morning of the performance, they had this ceremony that was so incredibly beautiful, and also in retrospect, just so like horrifying, because the ceremony is called a pauiri, and it's a Maori ceremony that it's a way of welcoming guests. And so the people who had organized this festival in Auckland did this for us, and basically it involves a lot of singing. Like we sang for them, they sang for us, and a lot of like beautiful ceremony. And then at the end of it, everybody forms two lines: the hosts from New Zealand, and then the guests, which was us. And you go down the line from person to person, and you touch forehead to forehead and nose to nose, and you look in each other's eyes, and you literally breathe the same air. And that's the whole point of the ceremony, which is incredibly beautiful. And I can't believe that we did it. And thank God we didn't get anybody sick in New Zealand, because by the next week already we were like, I can't believe we did that. And they trusted us with this ceremony. But I wanted to say that the piece that we were doing in New Zealand was this Renaissance a cappella Italian piece that we've been working on at the Master Chorale for several years, and it's called Lagrime of San Pietro, which translates as the Tears of St. Peter. And this is it's a piece that I'd love to again just share a little bit of this from my computer. It was staged for us by Peter Sellers, who's this really super brilliant stage director, and he teaches world cultures at UCLA, and he just knows kind of everything about everything. And he brought all of this range of experience and emotion to staging this piece for us. And it's a piece that, it's about the biblical story of Peter denying Jesus before the crucifixion. But what we really explored about it was less about like the specific religious or dogmatic interpretation of it, but really what it is to experience regret, what it is to go through the rest of your life looking back on something that you want to be able to do over, and how you live with that, and how you go on, and how you find redemption. There were 21 singers involved in this performance. And as I say, this was what we were doing in Auckland when we had that last performance. So I'm going to share my screen again, and it's a 21 movement piece. It's like the piece itself is about an hour and a half long. And so this is one of the 21 movements. This is the second movement of it. And I think you'll see there's a translation of the Italian in the in the subtitles. But what I'd love for you to, if you can see on your computer, if you look at the faces of the singers, because I think that the emotional investment that they give to this performance to me is so powerful. And that's really what we wanted to create in every performance that we give, is that level of emotional commitment. So here, like I say, this is the second movement. It's about 2.5 minutes long of this piece that we were working on last year. Okay. Hey, you guys, I find that just so beautiful. I'm watching again the singers and their commitment. You can imagine how much rehearsal time it took, because as I say, the piece goes on for 21 separate madrigals, separate movements. Hold on. Sorry. Ah! Stop. Hold on. There you are. Yeah, so I will say that for the first time that we performed that piece, which was in 2016, I think we had 28 rehearsals for it, which is like, I mean, for any group, that's kind of like mind-boggling. But for the LA Master Chorale, probably on average, we have maybe 5 or 6 rehearsals for any given concert. And I will say, even 28 rehearsals, we were like freaking out before the first performance. And I mean, I've never been so nervous and like having panic attacks. And I mean, it was a miracle that they pulled it off. But since then, and this, I think that video was actually from one of those first 2 performances. And since then, we've performed the piece about 25 or 26 times. So, and it just gets deeper and deeper, and we keep rehearsing it all the time. And so we're dying now to film it in the version that it is now, because it's so much even more committed. And I will say also Beth Peregrine, who's the woman in the video who was expecting. Her daughter is now 3 years old, and and so Beth can now get on the floor and roll around with everybody else. It was adapting the staging for Beth was super. I mean, she was like completely amazing and game for anything, which was incredible. So we came back from New Zealand, and obviously like everything had changed, and we did some virtual choir presentations and like that. But one of the main things that we did over the summer was really take the opportunity to look at ourselves as artists and as an organization in the Master Chorale, and think about, we have this opportunity to really assess, who we are, who we say we are, what our mission statement is, and are we really doing everything that we can to reflect that aspiration? And so, the answers were kind of like yes or maybe. So one of the things that we did early on in the summer was we decided we looked at the repertoire that we as a classical music organization are lifting up and what we are emphasizing. And it's true that the Master Chorale has been doing a lot of new music, and we've been commissioning a lot, and we've been cognizant of having more representation from the creative artists that we're working with. But looking at it realistically, it's not enough. It wasn't enough, and we felt like we wanted to make a commitment that was a systemic answer to the systemic bias in our organization, and that kind of runs through classical music. So we made a commitment that at least 50% of the music that we'll be doing going forward is from composers from underrepresented groups historically in classical music. So of course that's BIPOC. It's also, of course, female identifying composers who have been, were really quite shut out until recent times. And of course what that does is it allows us also to do what we say we want to do as choral artists, which is to lift up a multiplicity of voices. And so we also looked at our own leadership structure at the LA Master Chorale and thought that should also represent more voices, more viewpoints, more different histories. And so Jenny Wong, Dr. Jenny Wong, who was our associate conductor, recently got her DMA at USC, is a brilliantly gifted conductor and artist. She is now our associate artistic director. And then Rena Esmail, who's this brilliant musician who's based here in Los Angeles, is now our artist in residence. And it's interesting because Jenny was born and raised in Hong Kong, and came to the States to pursue her undergrad and then her master's and doctorate. Rena's parents both immigrated from India. Rena's father is Hindu and Muslim rather, and Rena's mother is Hindu. And so Rena also has this kind of multiplicity of histories. And just to complicate it further, she was actually raised Catholic when she got here so it's super confusing. But so we have now at the Master Chorale this trio of myself and Rena and Jenny, and it's the viewpoints and the vantage points that they bring to our artistic decisions are really beautiful and inspiring. And so I just wanted to share one other thing, if I can. I'm also going to, close my my mail app, which keeps on beeping. I super apologize for that. So here I go to share screen, and There we are, and back here, and let me do Tarakita. So this is this was one of the virtual choir presentations that we created in the fall. And so this is a piece that called Tarakita, which was written by Rina Esmael and conducted and led by Jenny Wong. And this is a piece, Rina wrote this piece originally for a group called Urban Voices, which is a choir that's based in Skid Row in downtown LA. And it's a choir of people, mainly of people who are experiencing homelessness. And so Rina wrote this piece for them, and it was, and she's drawing, as I think you'll hear, from the Hindustani traditions that she has been exploring as part of her heritage. And again, it's a super beautiful piece, and I will start it for real right here. Again, it's about 2 minutes long, and I think I love the way that our singers perform it. Rina really coached them carefully in the pronunciation and also the style of Hindustani singing, and she also coached them in the hand gestures, which are called the mudra, which accompany pretty much all of the singing from this tradition. So here it is. No more talking. Here we go.
Tarakita dum tarakita nom tarakita 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 dum tarakita nom tarakita
Cool. Let me get out of there and see you guys again. Yeah, thanks. I love that. It's I mean, it's just so much beautiful life in it. And again, seeing, I mean, you know how it is when you see people on the screen that you haven't seen in person for like ever. And I just kind of tear up seeing all those faces and like that. So, you know, that's, I feel like, you know, the one, if there is a silver lining in the pandemic and the current situation, you know, it is that I feel like when we come back to making music together, it's going to be with a renewed sense of first off, just of how incredibly special it is to be singing together, but also of the responsibility we have as artists, the importance of what we do, and the idea we will never ever take for granted again. You know, if we've ever been grumpy going into a rehearsal, or you know, or stressed out or whatnot, it's like, yeah, but you know what, it really beats like the alternative, which is, you know, making a virtual choir singing into your iPhone and like that. So I wanted to, because I'd like to just open this up and take questions and ask you guys some stuff. I wanted to share just one thought with you, and this is a quote from a musician named Ashraf Inayat Khan, And he was a Sufi musician who lived around the turn of the last century. So he was active around, between like 1905 to 1925 or 1930. And he was a musician and philosopher, and he wrote several books. And there's a quote from one of his books that I first read about 20 years ago, and I keep coming back to. And what he said was, he said, "It would be no exaggeration if I were to say that music alone can be the means by which the souls of races, nations, and families, which today are so far apart, may one day be united." He says, the musician's lesson in life is therefore a great one. Music is not expressed through language, but through beauty of rhythm and tone, which reach far beyond language. The more the musician is conscious of their mission in life, the greater service they can render to humanity. So that kind of says it all. Singing is more important now than ever. I mean, it blows my mind that he was able to say 100 years ago that music brings people together that today are so far apart, because of course it feels like we're more far apart than ever. But I really, of course, feel so strongly about the power of singing together, specifically about choral music. And I know I'm literally preaching to the choir right now, and I see your heads nodding. It's like, yeah, we get it. But it really is. It's so true, and there's, it's so interesting how much like quantifiable research has been going into this idea over the last 20 or 30 years about how singing together, first off, just physically for well-being, that it aligns our breathing, it aligns our heartbeats. People who sing in choir are generally healthier, have generally a better sense of well-being. They're also better citizens. If you sing in a choir, you're more likely to vote. You're more likely to volunteer for charitable causes. You're academically in school, you're more likely to have greater success. And so it's like knowing all of this about singing together when we're back in person, that can inform everything that we do, and also to make us better advocates for singing. I mean, because we all know in public schools, for instance, how challenging it is for music programs these days, more so than ever, between budget cuts and the schedule, music getting crowded out for STEM and for the testing and all this kind of stuff. So we need to be the best advocates that we can be for the importance of music, and of course, from my own vantage point, the importance of singing and singing together, and the bridges that allows us to build, and the barriers that allows us to break down. So I'm really eager to know like what is on your minds, and maybe I'll throw it out to you all. And Joanne, I don't know if you'd like to start, but I'm just curious, like, what are you looking forward to most in terms of, let's just say, in terms of like your music making and the art that's part of your life, when we're all back actually in person together.
Honestly, I mean, exactly what you said. I feel like we can finish now. I mean, that was very inspiring, everything you said. Just the fact, I'm going to be honest, I've been, guilty of, after a whole day of working at school or going to rehearsals and things like that. But what a privilege that was. And just breathing together and singing. That's just that. And just seeing you all. Seeing you all and breathing together and making music together. I'm so encouraged that you had your first live rehearsal, and I'm just really looking forward to it. And And so you guys, so to be honest with you, I didn't know how this was gonna go because we've never really done this. So I had our students prepare questions prior. But I think that I can be a control freak sometimes. So I'm sorry, you guys. Guys, that was so inspirational. I can see you guys all just being like, very inspired and amazed by what he's saying. So feel free to ask. You don't have to ask the questions that you turned into me. Just be, whatever question that you might have. So why don't you guys just you raise your hand with the icon, and Maestro can pick himself. So yeah, it's your turn. Who has a?
Oh, okay. Wait a second.
Don't be shy. Darian?
I do it.
Hey Grant, how's it going?
Hey, good, Darian.
So really quick, back in 2013, actually got the chance to like perform at the.
Oh, I think you went to mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. I was actually in the Master Honor Choir back in 2013, and you were my conductor. So thank you for that. But I wanted to ask, who influenced you the most in your life to become a conductor at such a high level in like one of like the most, or one of the greatest like known places in the world?
Wow. Well, thanks. I would say my biggest influence was probably Esa-Pekka Salonen, who was the music director of the LA Phil from 1992 till I guess 2009, something like that. And he became like my mentor. We worked together. I was a pianist, and I worked with Esa-Pekka playing rehearsals for him when he was conducting an opera in Europe back in 1992. And he like took me under his wing at the end of we spent a summer together working on this show. And at the end of it, he called me aside and said, he thought that I remember he said he thought I had the personality to be a conductor. And I remember thinking, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. But anyway, so he became like a mentor, and I learned so much from him. And I think the main thing that I learned from him was that conducting is about creating a framework for everybody to give their best performance, for everybody to kind of give of themselves in the most natural way and in the most confident way. So it's like much less back, in the old days with conductors, it was very much, the dictator on the podium, and every nuance would be, kind of micromanaged. And Esa-Pekka taught me that, again, it really is, it's like creating a scaffolding where like everybody can bring themselves to it, and you're guiding the music in space and in time, but you're allowing people to have ownership. People just do have the ownership of the music themselves. As a conductor, you're not making any noise. Except for a little bit of grunting here or there. So kind of that sense of collaboration as a conductor, I feel like is really, really important. It's something that I try to kind of try to always, make sure as part of every rehearsal and every performance. And what you find is that people give a more beautiful performance when they have the permission to be, when you have the permission to be yourself and to bring your own voice and your own artistry. Sorry, I'm going on and on, but there's one other quote that I keep coming back to again and again, and this is by Kamasi Washington, who's this amazing jazz composer and instrumentalist. And he talks about celebrating the harmony of our differences. And to me, like as a musician working in an ensemble, that is exactly what it's about. And so what it isn't is about unifying, like, so everybody sounds exactly the same. It's acknowledging that we're all different, but harmonizing those differences, right? And so yeah, I feel like as a conductor, like that's what you're doing, that's what you're listening for always, is to, and so that's why every choir should sound different, right? And every orchestra should sound different, because they're different people and they have different histories and they have different experiences and different backgrounds, and all of those things should inform what we're hearing. And when you hear those differences, I mean, that's what's super beautiful in hearing all the different choral ensembles that are blossoming right now. So sorry, super long answer. But by the way, Darian, what high school did you go to?
I went to a Royal High School in El Monte.
Oh, cool. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So thank you. And then I also have a part 2, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So to any people or person who would want to become a conductor, what advice would you give them?
I feel like to be a conductor, you kind of have to open yourself up to as many artistic experiences as possible. So, obviously there's all the training and music study and all that, but I think beyond that, it's like absorbing a lot of poetry, absorbing different language, studying different languages, different cultures, taking advantage of the internet and the fact that you can hear every kind of music ever created or conceived, and like immerse yourself in that. So you're just so you bring kind of the broadest background possible and range of experiences and range of things that you can draw from as a conductor. I think that, again, the technical stuff and the study stuff, yes, absolutely. But I mean, to me, like the conductors that I most admire, it's like mainly they're like these really interesting artists, and then that kind of translates into what they're doing on the podium. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Sure, Darian, thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, Grant.
Hey.
First off, it's always great being able to talk with a neighbor. I grew up down the street in Highland Park on York Boulevard.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Northeast LA.
Yeah, exactly. You sort of kind of answered this question a bit, but I was wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more. So here's my question. In your conversation with Eric Whitaker, you mentioned how out of all the instruments, the human voice is the most complex and versatile, that it's linked to our being and soul. Therefore, we're able to draw on so much more. I was honestly very intrigued, and I was wondering if you can speak more on how you apply this mindset, a little bit more specific on work while you're working with musicians. How are you able to bring out the best in them and in turn create an amazing and unique performance?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brian. I wish I knew. There's so much about it that seems mysterious, but I will say that, you're going back to, talking about the voice specifically. One of the things that inspires me the most is the idea that our voices, our instruments, are the things that kind of link us back to the earliest parts of our prehistory, right? So that, as you can imagine, before there was spoken language, I'm sure that there was singing, right? And the most fundamental aspects of musical expression are singing and dancing, and literally using our bodies as an instrument. And so, I really feel like there's that aspect of it wedded to then like bringing it into the present, the fact that, virtually every culture on the planet and every tradition has singing and singing together as part of the heritage and part of what creates identity. And so, again, kind of, acknowledging that and building that into your choir and into your experience with your fellow singers, I think is just like the most interesting thing. And so just bringing it a little bit more into the concrete, one of the things that I really like to emphasize is the importance of singing in different languages, and therefore, literally, tapping into different cultures and different traditions. And so when we're singing in, whether it's Italian or Quechua or Zulu or French or whatever, to go to people who speak the language, who understand the tradition, so that we can most authentically kind of meld ourselves in a way into that tradition or into that history. And I think that, again, that's one of the things that makes singing unique and singing in a choir unique. I mean, I love orchestras, and we love all of our friends that play instruments. But if you play a bassoon, that's a very specific kind of, it's a very specific tradition that super complicated instrument comes from. But we have the ability to interface with every culture and every tradition. And so that's, when we're programming and we're thinking about what we're going to be, what we want to present to our audiences, and also what we want to sing together as artists, we really think very strongly about how many different traditions and heritages can we tap into, and that's super fun.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And oh yeah, Donna, I see your hand. Hi.
Hello, how are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, totally. My pleasure.
The performances are just marvelous. And I can't tell you, it's just what you were saying today about the importance of singing and the power of it to bring a culture together is, I can't tell you just how moving a thought that is, because it's something that I have really been thinking about for so long. I've been a professional musician since I was a teenager, but I'm new to singing. And one of the reasons I took Dr. Cho's classes, because I also am an English teacher, and I've been teaching online, and it's been driving me crazy. And being a professional musician, I've realized pretty early on that performing is, it's not just I miss performing and I miss playing, but I miss being in that interaction with an audience, that I get as much, if not much more, from the audience being there than me just saying, oh, listen to how great I am on the violin. And I can tell, boy, this semester is so much easier, because it's like, oh my God, I can be in choir, And what you were saying about the need for music with our culture and the power that's, I think, been ignored about the social knitting or healing that music can do. I read an article in the paper this morning that was saying this is the first generation of administrators in education that didn't grow up with singing in schools. And it's, and we're in an atmosphere now that, sorry, this is kind of a long question, but an atmosphere of where everything is STEM and oh boy, and, sciences, and let's get everybody into sciences and math and engineering, which of course is great. But the article was saying, we're cutting off half our body by ignoring the arts, by ignoring music. And I feel as though we have this opportunity as musicians, as singers, as educators, we have this opportunity now to build back better, if you will, or to say, look, we're coming back together, and how can we, I guess that's what I'm asking, is how can we take advantage of this unique time to say, we can be better if we bring music into our lives as communities, as disadvantaged people who you literally are giving them a voice. What can we do to grab that opportunity?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the first thing is to model this, to model the vision that we have for a better world, which is literally to be singing, in a choir. I think that, for some people, there's going to be some reluctance or some hesitation as we come back next year. And I think to lead by example in that way. We're really aware, at the music center in downtown of the challenges that, especially that high school music teachers have right now. And of course, they're not new. They've been going on for decades at this point. So we're really putting as many resources as we can into training, into workshops, into advocacy, so that school administrators and principals and the district, the superintendents and all of that can see the research that's been done about the benefits of crossing, because they don't necessarily get that it's just for humanity. It's a good thing, but you kind of have to have like solid data as well that it will actually help your STEM kids. I mean, when I was in high school, there were so many friends that I knew that sang in choir or played in. We had an orchestra as well, or were in drama, and it's like that was the one thing that really like kept them in school. Several of my friends I don't think would have graduated without like that finding their tribe right in school. And so to emphasize that aspect of things, I will say that at the LA Master Chorale, we're also looking now to start a new youth choir initiative with the idea that we'll start in the next couple of years in some very targeted neighborhoods, but the idea that eventually in like 10, 20 years that every young person in Los Angeles area would have access to singing in a choir, because it's the access that is way underrepresented in certain areas, and that's that's just tragic. I look at the members of the LA Master Chorale, and I think at this point it's a quite representative group of a lot of different different parts of the city, and of course from all around the country and all around the world. But the one thing that I think every single member of because it's a professional auditioned ensemble, every single member of that had access to singing in a choir from a fairly early age. And I think that's probably the one common denominator. And so we really feel strongly that, whether or not you're going to pursue it for the rest of your life, having that experience, having the access to that experience, to feel the impact that singing in a group can have, and as I said, kind of finding your tribe, if that's what it turns out is something that really gives you joy. Having that is something that should be as Gustavo Dudamel often will say, it should be a fundamental human right to have that access. So we're using our status as a resident company at the music center, and as one of the largest professional choral organizations in the country, to really lead by example with this. And there's a lot of great examples around the country as well that we've been looking at. The Young People's Chorus of New York is phenomenal, and just the joy and the range of music that they're singing, and the commitment. The Chicago Children's Choir again, and each of these kind of organizations, they're really centering in on the city themselves. So Chicago is very different from New York, is very different from LA, and so each we have to have within each community that we're working in a dialogue, so that the music that we're learning together is music that will celebrate the traditions of those communities, but also bring, one part of the city together with another part of the city. And, our dream then, of course, is to have, like Darian was saying with the honor choir and the high school choir festival that we've had at Disney Hall, to have, this giant massed choir at, say the Hollywood Bowl, like 17,000 singers in there. And it's possible, so that it's like, I guess, visioning like what we want the world to be, and then whatever we can do in our own way to kind of make that a little bit closer to reality. I think that's, when we're back from all of this, being at home, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Donna, thanks. It's a hard question, but I mean, I really do feel hopeful. And I, having seen this decline for, as I say, decades at this point, ever since, not to get too political, but Prop 13, which was in the late 1970s, ever since then, we've been on this downward trajectory in arts and school. And I really do feel like it's starting to turn the tide. It was before the pandemic hit, and I'm more hopeful now that importance will really shine through.
Yeah. Thank you, Maestro. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for the question. Thanks for singing and teaching. Cool. Anybody else? Yeah, Martha.
Oh, hi. Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. My question is, staging a masterpiece like, okay, I'm gonna try to say this, Lagrime di San Pietro. I'm saying right?
Very good. I didn't get anything.
I think it must have been challenging, but have you considered staging more pieces in the future?
Yeah. It's this was this project. What to our mind was kind of would be the first in a series of pieces that are staged. And it's interesting because to me, singing is about using your whole body, right? I mean, your whole body is an instrument. And I feel like if you stage a piece like Lagrime, there's some dangers to, like, you can, I've seen like some pretty cheesy versions, or it's, if you find the way, to me, it's all about unlocking the music with movement. So it's not about kind of like putting the movement on top of the singing, but finding the way to move in space, to express something that is there in the music that could be more overt. And it's interesting with that project with Lagrime, with those, I mentioned 28 rehearsals. Of all those rehearsals, I would say about half of it was actually just talking about the poetry and talking about, what does it really mean to feel somebody looking at you, knowing that you could have done better, and how do you unpack that what's unsaid in this meeting of two sets of eyes. And so, because that's a lot of that particular piece. And so we really talked about all that in very, very personal ways, and then would find a way to express that with the movement, with Peter, the director. And it's a long process, I think, to really do it with like a lot of intention and integrity. You can't do it quickly, or at least we couldn't do it quickly. But I think, I don't know, you've probably seen other performances where singers are moving and dancing or expressing. And I find that almost always the music kind of animates more and just kind of like springs off of the stage more. And so, yeah, we're really eager to keep going with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. cool. I'm just looking around all these boxes. And yeah, I will say maybe just one other thing in closing, because one of the questions that I often get asked is about auditioning for the Master Chorale. And so just to say that we have auditions pretty much, this year, of course, we didn't because here we are. But normally we have auditions every January or February for the following year. And it's kind of a multi-stage process of auditioning, but there's some sight reading involved and some tonal memory, which we might play like a phrase and have you sing it back, that kind of thing. There's usually a couple of prepared pieces that you would come in and sing, and then we kind of, as one of the last phases, we'll have the person sing with a quartet of singers from the Master Chorale, just to see like how you react in real time and how you listen to the other singers, how they listen to you, so the audition process. Auditions are never fun. I feel like I've worked my whole life getting to the point where I don't have to audition anymore. I can sit on the other side. But we do try to make it for people to feel that they are kind of validated with wherever they are in their music, and the singing quartets part is in some ways the most fun, because you have this opportunity to make music together in real time with some like really nice singers. We try to pick like some of the friendlier ones to do the audition thing. So and our website, lamasterchorale.org, always has the information, usually in the fall. And this year we will definitely be having auditions again. So yeah, that's what's going on there.
So I have a question going off of that. So before you got here, we as a class were just chatting, and we have some students that want to transfer to a four-year university or afterwards, and we're talking about recommendation letters. And one student said, "Oh, I don't really see the point of that, because it was the recommendation letter asked for like your character, how you work with other people." And in this student that, "Oh, well, it's all about the music, and so I don't see how that's relevant." But so going back to all that, I remember reading like an article or interview by you a couple years ago, and you were saying how the singers that audition for you, even the people that do not get in, you can probably make a choir with the people that do not get in and make it like phenomenal. So like how much importance do you put in that, and if you can share with our students and like how the professionalism and what it takes to me, because as a teacher, when I just look at it, it's just as important as the musical ability, the ability to keep your word and work with other people. So if you can, when you audition people, what you look for in that area and how important that is, that would be wonderful.
Sure. It reminds me of when you're in kindergarten or first grade, and the teacher, there's this checkbox that says plays well with others. Right. So to me, that's like, as a musician, like you really want to make sure you have somebody that plays well with others. But yeah, unless maybe you're a solo pianist who like only plays recitals or what, you pretty much have to be able to function and to be collaborative. And so and certainly, in terms of putting together a choir, we're always looking for people who, we have the luxury, because it is a fully professional group, that, the people that get into the main ensemble, what we are able to kind of really emphasize is, will this person actually make the singers around them better, right? So it's not, it's like, and that's voice musicianship, but it's also about, feeling like it's somebody who is giving as an artist who listens carefully and can respond carefully and kind of find that, it's anytime you're in an ensemble, it's complex, right? There's all these different personalities, and so it's really important to have that ability to kind of find where you can function best and kind of make the most the most difference, the most impact, the most kind of positivity in your role. And that's, it's a little bit intangible. I mean, it's hard to quantify, but it comes from experience. I mean, that doesn't happen just like on its own. It comes from having sung in a lot of ensembles and having a lot of experience and being in different roles in an ensemble too. You might be, if you have the experience of being a section leader, but also a member of a section, and if you have the experience of conducting, but also singing in the ensemble, like all that combination of different experiences is also, those are the kind of things that you accumulate over time and just add to your maturity as an artist. And I think, whether it's an orchestra or a band or a choir, having somebody who's attuned to the possibilities of different roles is just golden. I mean, that's just so important and so beautiful when you find that. I hope that answers the
Yes,
question.
definitely. Thank you. Donna, did you just raise your hand again, or is it? Oh, it's from before. Okay.
Oh, yeah, Cesar, I think you said.
Hello, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us and give you your insight. So my question was, speaking on characters and individuality and like choirs and such, I'm sure you've encountered people who kind of like find trouble maneuvering a piece and putting their own personality and their own soul into it. And I myself, struggle with that too. I'll sometimes sing in another person's style because it's what comes out easier.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't come out as authentic, like with my own soul. So how would you and your own advice like tell me how to maneuver around that and line my voice with my soul? You get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It is really interesting. I mean, to me, a lot of it is, because, each of us has our own voice, and we also have, our own experiences, like the music that we grew up with, the music that we were singing from a young age. And for some people, that's like a very very clear and focused thing. For other people, there's like a huge range of experiences that they've had. To me, so when you're in an ensemble, and as I said, we want to have we want to have you, right? We want to have your voice, your personality. To me, it's a lot of it is, if you're working on a piece in a choir that's in a style that is not like a style that feels natural to you, to really do a lot of listening and just go on YouTube and look at maybe other pieces, that either the same piece or other pieces they're kind of in that style from different groups singing, and see through listening and experimenting, how you can get your own voice into that world, into that sonic world. And again, you'll always be you. You'll always have, it'll always be your voice. But some of us have to kind of make a bigger adjustment to kind of blend into, I'll go back to that, the harmony of differences, right? And so to find a way to harmonize your natural instincts with what this specific piece might need. And so, probably for some music, it's like right down the middle. Like you just get that. It's just a slam dunk. For other things, it's, it just takes kind of more adjusting and more listening and more kind of taking in a lot of information in order to find the way to harmonize, so that the overall ensemble also has like the most beauty and integrity of sound and focus.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers my question. I just need to open myself up and shape myself around my experiences and just add my flavor into it.
I think that's really right. I think it's totally right. And listen, listen, always, always, always.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answer.
Sure. Cool. Can you hear my dog snoring? She's 12 years old, and she's an old girl. Yeah, and big. So yeah.
What is it? What kind of dog is it?
Well, she's a lab. Her name is Mika, and then we have our other dog is a mutt, but he's about 122 pounds. He's like huge, and he's 11 or 12 years old. Also, that's Woofer. But I don't think Woofer is in here right now. But we have a lot of. Let's just say we have a lot of dog here. I think we've got about 200 pounds of dog between the two of them.
Wow.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Another question, if I could. What are you looking forward to? I mean, if you had a magic wand and you could do the concert with your choir, or adding other voices or other instruments or anything to your choir, what would be a dream concert for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have to say, one of the concerts that we had to cancel last year was this piece called The All Night Vigil by Rachmaninoff. Mm-hmm. And I think, fingers crossed, that this is going to be the first piece that we perform when we're able to hold the entire 100 singers is able to gather. And I love this music so much. It's an a cappella piece in Russian that was written. It was written in 1915, right before the Bolshevik Revolution. So it was like one of the last pieces that was written in this Russian, the Russian Orthodox Church a cappella singing tradition. And it's by Rachmaninoff, so it's like this huge, lush, harmonic landscapes, and it's like he's writing a symphony for choir, for voices, and it's like he's it's almost like instrumentation or orchestration, the way that he uses the choir. And of course, because it's Russian, it has basses all the way down to low B flat. I can't think that low in my voice. And so you've got this like enormous range of voices, and it's a piece where you really want to have like 100 singers, and it divides into like at least 20 different parts at various points. So these big, like beautiful, lush choral textures and the sound of the Russian language. Anyways, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it'll be, And the other thing I'll just say is, because we perform in Disney Hall, and the acoustics in Disney Hall for singing are really, really beautiful, and it just has this beautiful warm resonance to it. So a piece like that's a cappella, and you just hear like the sound of the human voice, like with no barriers. It's just that honesty and that directness. So that'll be pretty amazing.
That sounds wonderful. And I was just thinking, when we've been talking about this, of course, that the musical term ensemble literally means together, and that's such the heart of, I think, all music. And of course, now we can see the heart of society.
Yeah, exactly. No person is an island.
Right.
Okay, you guys, this is your last chance. Okay, well, Maestro Gershon. Oh,
I'll ask I'll ask a question. In your just conversation with Eric, one thing that you said that was paramount was how singers own the piece they're singing. So the question is like this: what do you do to achieve that? And what can you share with us, because you're not going to be here all the time, where we might be able to, each of us, own the piece we're singing? Perhaps I think there might even be a need to explain what it means to own the piece. So really it's a three-parter. What does it mean to own a piece? But that was so important with you and Eric. 2, what do you do that results in your chorale owning what they're singing? And what can you share with us so that we can get to that point where all songs we own?
Yeah, it's a great question. To me, it comes down to the poetry and the words, because 90% probably of what we sing has text, and that's kind of where we start. So I think the ownership comes from finding what it is in the words that you're singing, no matter what language it is, that speak to you personally. And I'll say as a conductor and as a leader, as somebody who is programming repertoire, right? I'm always really aware of choosing music that, first off, music that I love, and music that I think will speak to the singers that I'm working with. So once you have that, then we try to take the time as an ensemble in rehearsal to look at the words carefully, and the ownership it's two things to me. One is obviously the meaning of the words, right? And that's going to be different for every person. And for instance, if we're singing something liturgical, because a lot of the choral tradition that we have is going back to the Renaissance, is from the Catholic Church and liturgy. We sing a lot of requiems and a lot of masses and like that. So and of course, not all of us are coming from that tradition. So we need to find what is it about this about these words that are singing that go beyond the dogma of the specific religious text, and that speak to us personally or speak to our common humanity. I find it's easier in some ways when it's more recent poetry that's more open-ended. But anyway, so that's the one part is the meaning and what's the personal meaning, and then the other part is the sound of the words and the sound, because again, I really, really love singing in a lot of different languages, and part of the reason for that is that each language that you sing in has such a different sound world. And so the music, if you're singing Verdi, for instance, in Italian, it's like you have to love the sound of that Italian, and you have to understand, how Italian flows. That's different from Spanish, for instance, and obviously different from like German or English or whatever. And to know that those Italian vowels that are super pure and open and kind of allow the voice open, that they're broken up by consonants that have different lengths to them. So if you're singing the word for vengeance, for instance, vendetta, you have to lengthen that second T, right? Vendetta. You can't just sing vendetta because it's not in Italian anymore. you know, or amor, and the M is like super fast and light, and the vowel is long, you know, and when you kind of understand the flow of the sound of the language, then the music is automatically going to start to speak and sound like, you know, sound like Italian, and or whatever the, you know, whatever it is that you're singing, have that authenticity and the kind of intrinsic beauty of it. And that to me is also ownership. You know, that's also sorry, but I have to introduce you to, here's Woofer. And I saw another dog was up there a minute ago, but anyways, this is a 122-pound Woofer. Yes, hello. Anyways, yeah, so, oh my gosh, Donna, what a beauty. Nice. So that's, you know, to me, the ownership is, oh, it's, you know, it's about the words and about the poetry, and it's about language, you know, because that's the thing that kind of unifies us all, but also speaks to different, you know, all of our different traditions and different cultures. Is that kind of, yeah. So I guess, you know, just putting that forward, like, you know, for everybody, it's like, take the time with any piece of music that you're doing to look at the poetry really deeply. If it's a poet that you can research, you know, find out, you know, like what was going on in their own lives. If it relates to anything that you're experiencing or not, that can be super helpful as well. And then of course to look at the composer and what they might have been experiencing, or what they're trying to express, what their values were, and again, if you know, take anything that you can personally relate to, and put that into your music making, and that, I suppose that's what the ownership is. That, God, you guys are great. These are such great questions. Thank you. It's making me think.
Well, thank you so much. You know, this is like mid-semester, almost done with semester, kind of like time for us. And we've been doing virtual choirs for over a year now. But I think today we feel pretty refreshed, right? Like we feel motivated and excited again to, you know, finish strong. And yeah, and we really look forward to, in the very, very near future, making a trip maybe together to the Disney Hall and watch Grant Gershon do his magic with this group. But gosh, it was such a lovely hour and, you know, and a half, and just thank you so much for everything, all the wonderful words of wisdom, and just being so kind with us, and it was great. Thank you so much.
Oh, Joanne, thanks everybody. It's super great to see you all. Wonderful questions, and yes, and let's see each other in the concert hall. Let's be all making music again as soon as possible together. So thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.